In the ancient world, during the days of Abraham, a mysterious figure emerged, forever altering the landscape of Bible history in a single, profound moment. The Holy Scriptures speak of him as one without beginning of days or end of life, a priest whose origins are shrouded in divine mystery. Where did this enigmatic figure come from, this priest whose influence stretches across the ages, touching lives from Abraham to the very foundations of the faith? His name, Melchizedek. In this exposition, we delve into the depths of this extraordinary character. Why does the Bible describe him as having no father, no mother? Did he descend from the heavens, or was he a man cloaked in such divine authority that his lineage was beyond human comprehension? He is called the priest of the Most High, the King of Righteousness, and the King of Salem, which means King of Peace. But what does it mean for a man to carry such titles? How could he be so powerful as to bless Abraham, the very father of blessing himself? As the book of Hebrews declares in Hebrews chapter 7 and the 7th verse, without contradiction, the lesser is blessed by the greater. This suggests that Melchizedek held an authority that even Abraham, the chosen patriarch, recognized as greater than his own. But Melchizedek's mystery deepens. How could this priest, who appears only briefly in the scriptures, impact the life and ministry of Jesus Christ, though they never met in the flesh? How could his ancient priesthood shake the very pillars of the Levitical order and transcend into the foundations of the Catholic priesthood? His name is mentioned in whispers, his story rarely told, yet he stands at the crossroads of both the law and the tithe, connecting ancient traditions to timeless truths. That is why Bible Advantage has brought this revelation to you today, not to repeat what you've been told, but to uncover what the Holy Scriptures and their interpretation reveal as truth. And as the Scriptures promise, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So, if you felt the stirrings of truth, comment below. If this revelation resonates with you, like and share it with others so they, too, may receive the truth. And subscribe to remain grounded in it. Now, prepare for a transformative journey as we unravel the mystery of Melchizedek. We begin by diving into his fateful encounter with Father Abraham, and the powerful shift that occurred in Abraham's life from that moment forward. This is no ordinary story, it's an encounter that has the power to turn your life around, just as it did for the father of faith. Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear could change everything.
The wind swept across the barren plains of Canaan, carrying the scent of dust and wilderness. Abraham, still weary from battle, led his 300-man army through the rugged terrain. The victory was his, but the journey had been long, and the toll of war weighed heavily on his men's faces. Sweat mingled with the dust on their skin, their robes tattered and worn from the fight, yet their spirits remained high as they marched toward home. In the distance, the city of Salem rose like an oasis. Its walls were humble, made of stone and clay, unlike the grand cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, yet it exuded an air of peace, a stark contrast to the violence Abraham had just left behind. As they approached, something unusual caught his eye. A lone figure stood on the edge of the city. He was different, his posture regal, yet his demeanor was calm and serene. Draped in long flowing robes of deep indigo and gold, the man wore a simple but elegant headdress that shimmered faintly in the light. His face, lined with age yet glowing with an inner vitality, seemed to hold secrets of a time beyond the understanding of men. He was a king, that much was clear, but there was something more, something that made Abraham pause. This man, Melchizedek, stepped forward, a small entourage of servants behind him carrying pitchers of wine and baskets of bread. The smell of fresh-baked bread and crushed grapes reached Abraham, a sharp contrast to the dry, lifeless air around them. As Melchizedek approached, the sound of his footsteps seemed to melt into the wind, almost as if he were gliding across the earth, every movement purposeful, every step laden with meaning. Blessed be Abram, of God Most High, also known as Elelion. Melchizedek's voice was deep, resonating with authority yet dripping with kindness, like a father addressing his long-lost son. Abraham, though a powerful patriarch and battle-hardened leader, felt something stir within him. This man, this priest-king, was unlike anyone he had ever encountered. There was a calmness in Melchizedek's eyes, but behind it, an unshakable certainty, an understanding of things far beyond this moment. Abraham bowed his head slightly, not out of subservience, but out of respect for the sacredness he sensed in the air between them. Melchizedek motioned toward his servants, who presented the bread and wine. The simplicity of the offering felt holy. Abraham reached out, taking the bread, feeling its warmth in his hand. As he broke it, the sound seemed to echo in the quiet air between them. "Blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand," Melchizedek continued, raising his hands toward the heavens. The sun, now low in the sky, cast a golden glow over the land, illuminating Melchizedek's form like a figure from a dream. Abraham stood still, feeling the weight of his own mortality, but also the eternal hand guiding him, guiding them both. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind stilled, the clamor of his soldiers fell into the background, and all that remained was this priest-king and the invisible power that connected them both to something far greater. Abraham, moved beyond words, reached into his satchel and withdrew a tenth of all the spoils of his victory. Without hesitation, he laid them at Melchizedek's feet, a gesture of honor for the blessing he had just received. The two men, one a wandering patriarch with the promises of a nation yet unborn, the other, a timeless priest of a kingdom not of this world, stood there in silence. The bond they shared in that moment transcended words, transcended time. Abraham felt as though he were standing on the edge of something ancient, something eternal, as if this encounter had been ordained long before he was even born. As Melchizedek turned to leave, his robe swaying softly in the evening breeze, Abraham watched him go, knowing that this encounter would remain etched in his memory forever. He didn't know it then, but the priesthood of Melchizedek would echo through the ages, through kings and prophets, priests and messiahs, until it found its fulfillment in another who, like Melchizedek, would be both king and priest, eternal and without end. In the quiet that followed, Abraham turned back to his men, who had stood in reverent silence, witnessing the sacred exchange. The sun was now setting, casting long shadows across the plains. But in Abraham's heart, a new light had been kindled, a light that would guide him through the promises and trials yet to come. And so, with the blessing of Melchizedek lingering in the air, Abraham continued his journey, forever changed by the priest-king who had stepped out of the city of peace to meet him in the wilderness. Abraham had known El Shaddai, the Almighty, the one who provided abundantly for all his needs. He had been blessed with cattle that roamed freely across the plains, silver and gold that weighed down his caravans, and riches that made him a man of renown. Yet, as Abraham stood there, watching Melchizedek retreat into the fading horizon, a realization settled deep within him. Something had always been missing. For all the wealth and blessings El Shaddai had poured into his life, Abraham had not yet tasted the fullness of the honor and authority that came with true kingship. Wealth had given Abraham influence, but it hadn't given him stature. Even with all his riches, when he had stood before Pharaoh, he had been seen as a wanderer, a nomad with no real claim to land or throne. Pharaoh had taken his wife, Sarah, not out of desire for her alone, but because Abraham had lacked the authority to command respect. To Pharaoh, Abraham had been nothing more than a rich man without the power to protect what was his. Later, Abimelech too had seen through the riches and recognized in Abraham a man of wealth but not a man of status. Abraham had been treated like a warrior, like a militant figure, but never like a king. The wind picked up again, gently pulling at the edges of his robe, but this time Abraham felt different. The moment with Melchizedek had shifted something deep within him. It wasn't the bread and wine alone that had stirred his soul, it was the blessing. Melchizedek hadn't just acknowledged Abraham's victory in battle or the spoils he had gathered. No, Melchizedek had blessed him in the name of El Elyon, God Most High, a name that Abraham had never known so intimately before. El Shaddai, the many-breasted provider, had given Abraham the wealth of the earth, but El Elyon had just bestowed upon him something far greater: honor, kingship, and authority. In Melchizedek's words, Abraham felt a shift in his very being. He was no longer just a man rich in possessions. He was now a man rich in stature. In that blessing, Abraham could sense the invisible crown settling upon his head. His posture seemed to straighten, and his heart swelled with a new kind of confidence, one he had not known before. He realized now that his riches alone had never been enough to grant him true authority. But with Melchizedek's blessing, he had received the acknowledgement of kingship, not by earthly power or wealth, but by divine decree. Abraham was now recognized not only by men but by heaven itself. It was in the encounter with Melchizedek that Abraham moved beyond merely knowing God as the provider of his needs. Now he knew El Elyon, the Most High, the God who bestowed dominion and power. He understood that kingship came not from the spoils of war or from the accumulation of wealth, but from the blessing of God himself, delivered through the hands of his priest. For the first time, Abraham felt the weight of true authority rest upon him. No longer would he be seen as just a wealthy nomad or a militant leader. The next time he stood before kings, whether it be Pharaoh or Abimelech, he would stand as their equal, perhaps even their superior. He now carried the mark of kingship upon his spirit, a mantle that would pass down to his descendants, stretching through the ages. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Abraham felt a peace settle over him. This peace was not like the fleeting comforts of wealth or the momentary satisfaction of victory in battle. No, this was the peace of a man who had found his true place, not just as a man of riches, but as a man of honor, a man of authority, a man blessed by El Elyon himself. From that day forward, Abraham would walk differently. The world would see not just a man blessed by El Shaddai but a man anointed by the Most High. He had received more than just wealth from his God. He had received a kingdom in the making. The encounter with Melchizedek had changed everything, and Abraham now carried with him the invisible crown that would one day lead to kings, nations, and a legacy that would stretch beyond the stars. As a child of Abraham, the encounter Abraham experienced with the God who provides and the God who reigns as the Most High is not just a distant story, it's an invitation. You too can step into that same encounter. Just as Abraham stood face to face with Melchizedek and was transformed, you have the opportunity to meet the one who offers not only provision but kingship, honor, and divine authority. This is where everything changes, where the ground beneath you seems to shift, and the weight of glory falls upon your life. Melchizedek's impact did not end with Abraham. Thousands of years later, his influence reached the ministry of Jesus Christ, shaping its very foundation. The scriptures foretold this connection long before Christ walked the earth. In Psalm 110 verse 3 we find a prophetic declaration, "Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek." In this profound verse, we see that Melchizedek was not merely a historical figure. He was a typology of the Messiah, a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ himself. Some even believe Melchizedek was a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. What does this mean for you? It means that the authority and kingship that rested on Melchizedek, the ability to bless, to reign, to stand as a priest before God, now resides fully in Christ. Jesus, through his death and resurrection, fulfills and embodies the order of Melchizedek, standing as both king and priest. Throughout biblical history, God appointed kings, priests, and prophets separately, each with their own specific role to play in guiding and serving his people. But Melchizedek carried both offices, the role of priest and king. And so too does Jesus Christ. Now here's where it becomes even more personal. This divine authority, this dual role of kingship and priesthood, isn't just for Jesus alone. Anyone who is associated with him, anyone who steps into this order through faith, can walk in this same power. You have the opportunity to experience what Abraham experienced and what Christ fully embodied. It's not just a story from thousands of years ago, it's an invitation to you here and now. By having a spiritual encounter with Jesus as Lord, you can step into this divine inheritance. The same priestly blessing that fell upon Abraham, the same authority that shaped Christ's ministry, is available to you. It's an invitation to walk in divine kingship and priesthood, a life marked by authority, provision, and the favor of the Most High. So, if this stirs something in your heart, if you sense the need for this encounter, reach out. Head to the comments and let us know if that's the prayer you seek. We are here to pray for you, to stand with you as you step into the fullness of what God has for you. This is no ordinary invitation. This is the pathway to a transformed life, the same life that Abraham tasted, the same life that Christ fulfilled. Will you answer the call? Let's walk this journey together, and as we pray, prepare for a divine encounter that can change everything. The role of Melchizedek as a priest is remarkable, not merely because of his mysterious appearance, but because of the divine order he carries, a priesthood so profound that it was passed down to Jesus himself. This order is different, distinct, and as Hebrews 7 reveals, it supersedes the levitical priesthood. The Old Covenant, with its sacrifices, rituals, and priests from the tribe of Levi, is now disannulled by the new and greater priesthood that Melchizedek embodied, a priesthood rooted in eternal authority and divine kingship. The writer of Hebrews makes it clear. This new priesthood, established in Jesus after the order of Melchizedek, brings a revolutionary shift. It dissolves the old ways and practices of the Levitical system, inviting us into a deeper, more transformative understanding of God's purpose for priesthood, one that transcends law and ritual. In our next story on Melchizedek, we will dive even deeper into how this eternal priesthood ought to be aligned with today, and why clinging to the practices of the old Levitical priesthood misses the true impact of Melchizedek's order. We will explore his connection to the law and the tithe, and how these ancient principles were reshaped through him to carry lasting significance. So stay tuned. Subscribe and turn on your notifications to continue uncovering the mystery and profound truths of the Bible through Bible Advantage. The journey with Melchizedek is just beginning, and we promise it will open your eyes to new depths of understanding. God bless you as you walk in this revelation.